Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays Today podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunswick. Okay, I have some updates for you because Kirby and I were at Austin City Limits last week. Update, I am old. I don't know when that happened, but I am. We went to Austin City Limits 7 years ago for my 30th birthday. And we had just gone for one night to go see Mumford. And it was good. Like, I don't remember thinking too much about it was great. Mumford was great. So this time I knew Mumford was going to be there. I'm like, we are going to Austin City Limits. We get the 3-day pass because Kendrick Lamar and Shania and Foo Fighters and all these great people are going to be there. And so we go, and night one, oh my gosh. There's too many people. As we're driving there, the Uber person is like, yeah, apparently 70,000 people go to this a day. Wow, that's a lot. You know what it's like? Have you ever been at Disney and right at the time of opening and everybody's just getting crammed down that tiny main street? Except this time, imagine there's 5 times as many people, if not 10 times, and you are completely the inappropriate age to be there. At Disney, at least people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, there were old people there. There were. We went and sat by, we went and found where people sitting, and we're like, these are our people, the 30 to 60-year-olds. These are our people. So I don't know. We modified our expectations. This is something I'm learning of my expectations were just not ready for that. And so we pivoted, we made some changes. We adapted. It was great. I got to meet up with one of my guests, Megan MacArthur. I don't remember what episode she was on, but I posted it on Instagram. Wealth with Meg. I got to meet her for coffee. That was awesome. Talk about a chick doing really cool shit. She just graduated from chiropractic school, I don't know, a year ago, maybe two, because she was a chiropractor for a little bit. And then anyways, so she's doing some really cool stuff, helping chiropractors just with their social media, and she's got all these side hustles. She's definitely an Enneagram 3. So I don't know, maybe we'll do something in 2024 together. And let's see. Oh, I'm really excited to go to therapy because there was this thing that happened at Austin City Limits, and I want to know your opinion on what you would do. Now, you can only give me your opinion if you can relate to this, though. So I didn't realize when we bought tickets that they put bands. So they have 2 main stages on the separate sides, and they'll have 2 great bands happening at the same time. For instance, Shania Twain was at the exact same time as Foo Fighters. And so we saw this a week or so beforehand, and we're like, oh, we're going to have to decide. And Kirby's like, is there really a decision? I mean, Foo Fighters. And I'm like, yeah, sure. You really like Foo Fighters? And I had heard from people previously who had gone to a concert of hers, Shania was bad. And I was like, okay, well, I've heard Shania's bad. And I didn't realize how much I actually liked Shania. Wait for the story. So I'm like, yeah, this is fine. We'll do Foo Fighters. We're there for Mumford. That's my band. You're excited for Foo. So we're at the concert, and we're way in the back, where you can talk and stuff. And we're listening. Foo Fighters are rock. Did you guys know this? That they're a rock band. I have, if I asked, I don't want to say her name out loud because I might have one of them in this recording room. But if you ask someone hey, so-and-so, play Foo Fighters, you'll probably recognize the first 4 or 5 songs. Well, they just came out real rock. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. And so then it's a 2-hour concert. And so I don't know, 45 minutes in, an hour in, I don't know. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. Kirby's like, yeah, well, let's go. So you have to walk a mile to get everywhere. So we walk to the bathrooms, and the bathrooms are kind of in between the stages. So now for the first time, I can hear Shania on the opposite stage because I wasn't able to hear her before, even though she's playing at the same time, right? Because that would be a really dumb way to set up a festival. So I come out, and I was like, oh, I know this song. And Kirby's like, do you want to walk over for a song or two? I'm like, is that okay? And he's like, yeah. So I'm getting to my point here. This is really important stuff, people. All right. If you're going to be my therapist, you need to just listen to my long-winded stories. So the song I liked as we're walking towards her stage ends and the next song comes on and I don't remember what it was, but I knew I freaking loved it. And I was like, Kirby, we got to run. This is a great song. So we start running. I start running. I'm assuming he's running behind me to get closer so we're still a quarter of a mile back, but like definitely you're now in the giant mosh pit of 30,000 people, not in the mosh pit, but like in the back. And I'm listening and I'm singing and I'm loving this song. And then the next song comes on and it was From This Moment. It's like a sad, sappy song. But then all of a sudden, and by the way, she was bad. I mean, I don't want to say her singing was bad, but you're like watching her on stage move her body and you're like, oh, but she is 58. So I mean, like, I don't know what I expect, but like, singing was fine. So anyway, so she's like dancing with this guy and we're like, what is happening? But I still know every single word to the song, which I didn't realize, like core memory unlocked. Shania Twain's CD was one of like the 5 CDs that I had in my 5 CD disc changer. Britney Spears was also. Beach Boys, like top hits or whatever it's called, was also another one that was really weird. We don't need to go over the rest of them, but yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God, I love Shania. I didn't know how much I love Shania until this moment. And so I'm like, okay, Curb, let's go back to Foo Fighters. And he's like, no, you're having a great time. And I'm like, no, you're really excited about Foo Fighters. And he's like, yeah, but you're more excited about Shania. And here's my point. Thank you for listening. How do we rectify that? Because my range of emotions are a -2 to an 11. So when I'm in a bad mood and I don't get my way and I'm really mad about it, I will make everyone's life hell. A -2 will impact. And then when I'm having a great time, everyone's going to have a great time. Like, this is fantastic. Now, Kirby's range of emotions. So at a Shania concert, I didn't even know much about Shania or like didn't care much, I should say. And then as soon as I hear it, I'm like a 9 out of 10. Like just like, oh my God, I love Shania. I forgot how much I love Shania. Oh, I love this song. Oh, I love this song. I'm like meeting friends. We're singing together. And then at a Foo Fighters concert, like Kirby's range of emotions are like a 4 to a 7. And he actually prides himself on this, that like, I forget the fancy word for like not having super highs and super lows, but like he likes this narrow window that, his emotions don't affect other people. And so us standing in a Foo Fighters concert, like I'm just kind of like a 3 and he's like having the best of his emotion, but it's like a 6. And so we can't make decisions about who wants it more. Right. So like down to something small. So just to finish that, what we did is we were like, listen, I said, you 100% would rather go Foo Fighters. He's like, yes. And I go, I 100% would rather go Shania Twain. So we are 50-50. So we're going to flip a coin. And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. I think he was hoping that Shania was going to win. So we flip a coin and Foo Fighters wins. And I'm like, okay, this is our decision. We're not going to waste any more time because we spent like 10 minutes during the concert, like being like, no, your concert, no, your concert, no. And so we're like, okay, Foo Fighter wins. We're going back to that concert. We are standing there less than like 4 minutes. And he's like, let's just go to Shania. You're not happy. And I was like, absolutely not. No, like this is okay. But yeah, I don't know, like I guess just a coin flip, but you can't do that with everything because there's some things that he's like, well, I kind of care, but not as much as you. And the fact is like, I don't want to say never care as much as I will, but I'm always going to want it more. I'm always going to not want something more. I'm always going to have these bigger emotions. So I'm excited to talk to my therapist this afternoon about it. Since you guys suck at giving feedback, like, hello, listening. No, any advice? You suck. This is all right. I'm going to look for another guest to have on the podcast. This is what I joke is I just have people on the podcast, that I can talk to them and therapize with. Okay. What else is so anyway, I'll let you know what she says. I had a listener highlight, but I couldn't find it because you guys continue to say really, really sweet things in my DMs and not on in reviews, but I get it. A lot of you are listening to Spotify, and why doesn't Spotify let you leave reviews? Like, what's the deal? Hashtag FU Spotify. So I don't know where it went, but somebody said really nice things to me, something about the podcast changing their life, got them out of a bad associate job and into a new one. So we're happy for her. Aren't we all happy for her? And thank you for sending me the message because it makes me feel good. I should probably systematize that better. Like maybe what I could do is screenshot it. And then what am I going to do with that? I'm going to lose that screenshot too. I tried going back to find a DM that I had gotten in September, and it was like, there's no way in hell. I love you guys and all your DMs. So this just can't go back much further than a week. And it is further, not farther. So I don't have a listener highlight. I had one that I just can't share with you. So I guess we're on to the guest today. So I'm really excited about the guest. I don't know if I call her doctor because she's a functional diagnostic nutrition and holistic health practitioner. I don't know. I don't see doctor in front of her name. So I apologize if Tiffany Cagwin is a doctor, but it doesn't say that. So like I said, she's a former corporate head of people who became a functional diagnostic nutrition and holistic health practitioner to support busy professionals as they heal the excess stress, fatigue, and pain that comes from a demanding work life. So like clearly I didn't need her at all because I'm perfect and great. While navigating her own health journey, Tiffany realized that many traditional and holistic practitioners were simply using different band-aids to cover the symptoms of root problems. Now, as a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, board certified holistic health practitioner, and yoga teacher, Tiffany helps her clients make lifestyle, mindset, and nutritional challenges that heal the brain fog, anxiety, and inflammation that keeps them from taking on new challenges. Okay, so reading that, I have two things. One, I'm really glad that we're doing a topic about this because as I said, like, oh, I only bring on people that like relates to what I'm going through in life. She was this perfectly timed guest that floated into my inbox because we talk about light therapy. And if you're following me on Instagram, you may have seen some weird photos of me with like red blue light glasses. And I'm trying to work on hormones, doing some like things at home. Yeah. So this was awesome because we're talking about hormones today. The second story, and hopefully you're still listening because this is really funny and this is the tea. Okay. So I'm not going to tell you which episode it is coming up, but there's an episode in your future somewhere where those of you who know me, you will hear that my guest gets like mad at me right in the beginning. And it gets awkward for a moment to the point where when I got off, I told Kirby, he's like, how'd that episode go? And I was like, it was good. She was a little interesting because I made a joke about how I don't know, something along the lines of, oh yeah, you can't go to a hospital for autoimmune diseases. Like, I don't know what they're doing over there, but it's not autoimmune disease. And I got like the most like finger wagging. I refuse. Like, she's not a doctor. Like, I don't know why. I don't know if like her brother is a doctor or something that she just got super offended. So anyway, so like, it's just this really awkward moment. I know that Kirby and our editor are going to keep it in because it's not, and now you want to hear it, don't you? But I struggled to recover for like the next 15 minutes because I was just so like, oh my gosh, like you made that so weird. You got so mad at me for making fun of hospital systems. Like, come on. I would be at cocktails with like medical doctors and dermatologists and gastroenterologists and be like, okay, gastro and like dermatologists, have y'all figured out that like how to heal a gut without Prevacid or steroids yet? Like, do you guys realize how much her skin issues that she sees are related to your gut issues? Like, do you guys know that? Oh, no, you don't, because I don't know what they teach you in med school. I would say that to them and they would go, ho, 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 because they think I'm funny. But my guest did not. So anyways, this wasn't Tiffany. Like I said, there's an episode in your future that if you are a really good she slayer, you will be listening to this story and then you'll hear that later and go, ha, that's what she was talking about. So let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for the healing capacity of the sun. that's what we were talking about a little bit today and a bunch of different other things. Thanks for people like Tiffany and other healthcare practitioners who are doing this work right now, because shit's getting crazy out there. Absolutely crazy. Like, we just keep turning more and more away from the earth and like the things that you gave us to heal. Like, today we are reminded about the electron transport chain and electrons. And like, I'm taken back to learning about the cell and making the mitochondria and all of that. And like, nobody tells you as an adult, like, no, that's important. That's how your body gets fuel. That's how your body functions, is through life and things like grounding and food from this earth and sun and wind and cold air and shit like that. So just help us continue to return to the elements that you have created so much for us as humans to thrive. Help us to get outside, help us to be better humans and love each other more and more every day. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, here is my conversation with Tiffany Cagwin. Enjoy. Tiffany, what is your background?
Well, I have been through a lot of different jobs. I started as a teacher, went into business, corporate America. But the middle part, I would say the longest part of my career was owning a couple yoga studios in Syracuse. So I started a yoga studio in
Were you a
2000.
yogi, or you're like, this is a great business adventure?
No. I was totally a yogi,
Okay.
and I was
Because it just
living
sounded
in.
like something I would do, of like opportunity. I
Yeah.
can't even touch my toes, nor do I like doing yoga, but opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity because Syracuse had no yoga, but I was living in Boston at the time. Yoga was huge in my life. And then I had to move back to Syracuse and there was no yoga. And I panicked because I was like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to practice? And somebody was like, well, then create it, like build it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's just kind of my personal healing practice. I just want to show up somewhere. And they were like, of
You took a
course.
hobby and turned it into a
Yeah,
business.
I did. I've done that thing for
Hmm.
sure. And I had those kept growing. I had multiple locations, a large staff, the whole thing, almost 10 years, and then sold it, closed on the sale at the end of 2019, November 2019.
That was a great
Hmm.
timing.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me where my crystal ball is. They're like,
Yeah.
where are you keeping that? I'm like, yeah. Then I just went back into corporate life for a while. I worked for remote tech companies. And at the time was then working on my executive MBA and my functional medicine degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're in
So,
functional medicine.
yeah. So that was always
Functional
like
medicine and corporate tech. Those
interesting. They don't
they
go.
don't seem to fit.
No, they don't. I mean, the thread of my life really has always been wellness. Like I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was 17. It sent me on a journey of health, eventually coming across more alternative holistic healing over years and years of like experimenting. And because when I was 17, there was no internet, there were no cell phones, there wasn't an abundance of information to Google. So I was just like experimenting and trying things. This is where yoga came in the picture, though, and became so profound for my healing. But that's always been the thread of just like wellness, wanting to help people. The corporate tech job was a very intentional choice after really being very burned out from the yoga studio, from that huge operation, 7 days a week, no end, no break, taking care of everybody else, not taking care of myself. And I just was like, I'm done. I want a 9 to 5. That's it. I want to end it.
Sometimes I daydream about like
Yeah.
just going and being like a beer cart girl. That's one of the ones that I
Right.
think about. Like, I don't have any like problems in the world except tip money and like running a plant store. I just want to like walk
I
around and
had that.
water plants all day.
I had that one too. I was like, what do I like gardening store? I want to be outside. I just want my hands in the dirt.
But
Like,
then I'm always like, and I want a coffee shop in the plant store, but I don't want to run the coffee shop because I don't want to
right.
deal with that. But yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it was just like, I'm done. I want to hide. I want to be done at 5 o'clock. I'm going to do a good job. It was just something I was easily good at. I was working as like a head of people and helping build culture and these things that like just were very intuitive to me. Leadership, helping leadership. but I was healing. I was healing from a big flare of Crohn's that happened in 2019 after 10 years of remission. And
10 years of remission. And
yeah.
then
And it was remission. It was not clinically gone. It was remission, but it was very quiet. I was off of meds, but then it flared up again really suddenly. Looking back, not so suddenly. There were lots of signs, but the train was totally going to come off the tracks. And I think the interesting piece is the day that it derailed was the day I accepted the offer on the yoga studio sale. I was on a plane on the way to Costa Rica to lead a yoga retreat, and it like came back full force. And I was like, should have immediately been in the hospital, very sick. Had to turn around and go home and go in the hospital. My ex had to stay and lead the retreat because we had like 40 people. It was a thing. But I think my body that day was like, oh, good. You have listened. You are releasing this. And now
still
it's
that
time to
business. Now you
heal.
will rest.
Yes. And so that turned me on to looking at a more functional medicine, holistic approach. And I healed at that point. Then I had 5 autoimmune diagnoses, which is what happens, it's cascade. But I healed them all, healed and reversed them, like different than remission, clinically gone.
Got it.
The doctors were like, clinically gone, no evidence. You no longer have any autoimmune. I'm like, oh no, it's gone. So I just wanted to study actually for myself to go deeper.
Mhm.
And so I started that. So to your question about being in corporate America, studying functional medicine, it was like my own inner journey
That
to
makes sense.
understand more.
Yeah, because you can't just go to
Yeah.
a hospital and get, good advice.
Nope. Nope. You
I
sure
was trying to
can't.
figure out how am I gonna end that sentence, and I'm just gonna end it with good advice.
Good
So
advice.
you were like, "I will." So then how did you kind of carve out this more specific niche of working with women in with like chronic fatigue, that not just women with chronic fatigue, but like women with chronic fatigue that work at like a high level of executive function, I should.
Yeah. That came from those years in being back in the corporate world. And I was at an executive level on the leadership team. And because my role was head of people, seeing what was happening, seeing the burnout, and particularly with women at the company. And I just had such a heart for it. And I was like, they don't even know that they don't have to feel this way. They're running so fast, so hard, trying to be everything for everybody. And I've been that person. I've been there. I've done this. I want to help. I want to help them. Like, because women should run the world.
But the men were not experiencing the same burnout that you were seeing.
No, I can't say that universally. That certainly was happening, especially during COVID. I mean, I started back in the corporate world in February 2020, and everybody was experiencing burnout, I would say at that time. So
Mhm.
I can't say that it was exclusively women and that it was men were immune to it. But I saw that what I did see is with a lot of my male colleagues, they had a lot more, how do I sense, like space, permission, courage to just make some changes, make space, take what they needed.
Like,
Like,
can you give some examples of like what that would have looked like?
yeah, like taking extended leave and not being concerned that their job wasn't going to be there when they got back. It just like wasn't even a question to them. Like, obviously my job's going to be here. Whereas like the women were like, if I take leave, someone's going to swoop in and take this job. It's not going to be available. They're going to think that I'm not strong enough. They're going to question my ability to do my job if I'm not resilient. And so I watched during the pandemic, especially, there was also an imbalance with childcare responsibility.
Mm.
From my experience, from what I was seeing, the women that I worked with were constantly trying to juggle the childcare. And so another example would be I would see the men go take space and leave and go to rent a co-working space or get out of the house. And a lot of the female leaders didn't have that. And they were trying to juggle homework. And then they had systems of like, colors on doors, like to tell their children, like, red, stop in a meeting. But then inevitably the children
That's
would
a
come
really good
in.
idea.
Yes.
I currently have a piece of paper taped to my door that says recording, and I think in the last month, I've had a kid walk in twice being like, "Hey, mom, do you know where batteries are?" And I'm like, "Dude, recording." And she's like, "Oh, sorry." Like,
Yeah, yeah. And I was dealing with that because, so I'm working at home. My son is home. He was a teenager, high school. He didn't do very well sitting in his room in virtual school. We quickly learned that. That basically gave him permission to just watch YouTube all day.
mhm,
So I didn't have a choice except for to make him come out and sit with me. And then it was like 100 times a day. Oh, hey, mom, whatever. Like,
mhm.
mom. And it was so cool stuff. He wanted to share, ask me a question, but I would be like, the amount of times I said, Caden, I'm working.
Working,
Caden, mommy's
working.
like, I'm at work. This is work. This is my office. Please pretend like I am not here.
And that doesn't change when I've taken my kids out of the house too. So, like, I've never some chiropractors bring their kids to work. I was never that chiropractor. I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to. That's all it is. I knew, that I would struggle being present, and some chiropractors wouldn't have that problem. So, occasionally, like, a kid's getting dropped off at my clinic for whatever reason. So, it's not, and I will be adjusting, and we have open adjusting, meaning there's, like, it's just open, like a physical therapy office almost, think
Okay.
about, okay.
Got it. Yeah.
So, I'm, like, adjusting, and, like, one of my kids will walk up to me while I'm adjusting a patient and be like, "What's the Wi-Fi password here?" And I'm like, "Honey, I'm adjusting a patient." And they're like, "Oh, sorry. Okay. When you're done, will you tell?" And I'm like, so it just keeps going. Even if you could rent a space, if your kids are there,
Hmm.
they're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think some of the, like, reasons that we're seeing, like, is the energy? I feel tired. And so I am 36, going to be 37. I have, like, started to make some very hormone based life changes, completely doctoring myself with no lab work, just finding people on TikTok and whatever, and just being like, I have those symptoms. So great, great. But I look back to my 20s, and I started a clinic. I had babies. I mean, and I just look back and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how I did it back then." Is, like, being in, like, aging what's contributing to it, or as a society are we seeing more fatigue? Like, what's your thoughts on our society in general? Why we're seeing so much chronic fatigue?
Yeah. I don't believe it's aging. I will tell you the thing. Of course, we're aging. Like, that's going to have some changes. I don't think it's supposed to be, I know it's not supposed to be as dramatic as it is. Like, I'm 45. I feel better now. I have better energy than I actually did in my 20s. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that myth of just, you're just aging. And that's what happens when
Mhm.
women go to the doctor. I mean, honestly, even if you went and did lab work, the chances of
Probably your
you getting,
thyroid. Here's some
yeah,
here's some Synthroid.
here's some Synthroid, or they just go like, "Nah, you're fine." And it's like a total gaslighting, and they're like, "Yeah, but I'm not fine. I don't feel well, but you're fine. Your labs are normal." Well, normal compared to what? The general population who is also not healthy? That's not a good measure. These typical lab ranges are looking at literally the entire population who does these tests. So, like, what is normal? Normal is before I'm completely crashed and now I'm on meds. And basically what they're saying is come back when there's a problem and we'll put you on meds. So the reason that I think we're seeing an increase is I'll talk about two things. One, just using your example of like why you were able to do all that stuff in your 20s and you're feeling the difference now. I think many of us who have this personality, sounds like you do, you're just like, I can do everything. I can build a business. I can do it all. At that time, your cortisol is kicking hard because, there's a cycle of things. There's the sympathetic fight and flight when there is a stressor, and stressor is not a bad thing. Stress is supposed to be a good thing. It propels us forward. It gets us through those times in life where we are having children, trying to work, building a family, all those things. Like, it's not bad to have the stressors, but what needs to happen is you should have the stressor and then the come down. The parasympathetic should pull that down. Your hormones should rebalance until the next one happens. The problem is that because of modern life, which has just accelerated and increased, and there's no breaks. There's no breaks from anything. We are really expected to do everything all the time. Work doesn't shut off. Like there's no boundaries. We just do all the things. That cortisol is always kicking. Your adrenals are always pumping, 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 and you can feel amazing during that time on top of the world. That could last for 10 years, 20 years because it's an anti-inflammatory, cortisol is. It's a
It is?
painkiller. Yeah,
But I
yeah.
thought that's why I have a trouble belly fat is
Well,
commercial.
right. I
They have
mean,
commercials back when we
yeah,
used to watch them from the
yeah,
early
yeah.
2000s. They've stuck in there.
Yeah, those they were very effective. And I'm sure there was a drug to fix it.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a painkiller, it's an anti-inflammatory. It will keep you rolling and you will feel high
Oh,
on life. But when you're riding that high
it's
and you're
like
never
cocaine.
coming off yes, that's it's a drug and it's adrenaline. And then over time, when that is constantly pumping with no break, the levels start to come down and your body can't keep up. It just can't. It can't
What
keep
comes down?
cranking.
Cortisol?
Cortisol, all of the hormones, DHEA, because everything is feeding into each other. So there's sort of a cascade of like the master hormones, pregnenolone and DHEA. Those are trying to, so DHEA is the counter hormone to cortisol. So
Okay.
what happens over time is cortisol's pumping and then DHEA comes in and says like, okay, now I'm supposed to counter this and pull it down and it will, but then you keep pumping and then more DHA has to balance that, and you can see it becomes this vicious cycle. And at some point your adrenals can't keep up and then you start to experience adrenal fatigue and things just start to slowly decline. The things that you used to do that filled you up, that gave you energy, they're not working anymore. You're starting to self medicate at this point with more caffeine, comfort foods, whatever you got to do to get through the day.
Mhm.
And so your levels now are just kind of bottoming out. So that's part of it
Yeah.
is that people are experiencing actual adrenal fatigue and their hormones have just tanked because it was
Is
just too long.
adrenal fatigue a diagnosis that like we've really accepted I mean not accepted, that like the medical community sees? Because back to kind of the like, well, your labs are fine. Like what they're waiting, like I feel like that's where adrenal fatigue is. And they're
Yes.
like, well, you're not at rock bottom yet.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe like 5 more years. Have a couple more kids, start a side hustle, run a marathon. Then
Yeah.
I bet you.
Totally. You just hit the nail on the head because that's the point when things can get turned around. There's this graph that I use to show my clients of this cycle of like the peaks and the valley. And when you start to come over, and you're moving towards adrenal fatigue. And then after that, it's like skull and crossbones. Like it's bad news, like if it continues. But yes, they're looking at conventional ranges. They don't have any solutions to fix it. It just is what it is. It's aging and whatever. You're not at a point where you need medication yet. There's nothing I can do to help you. And exactly what they're saying is come back when this has crashed and then we'll give you medication and then we'll just like synthetically boost you back up without ever fixing any root of the issue, your lifestyle, your food, your gut, all these things that contribute. So that's one of the big things. I will tell you the other thing that this is a more recent understanding of mine over the last 2 years is the massive impact of our disconnect from nature and the very unnatural way that we're living because we think we're modern humans. We can live indoors all the time. I mean, I look at my own house and it's like I literally don't have to leave. I have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and an infrared sauna and red lights and exercise equipment and whatever. I don't have to leave the house. And so a lot of times I didn't because I was like, I have all the things to keep myself well in here. And I didn't understand that I needed input energy from nature to fill my battery back up. And that modern life is depleting it constantly. Blue light, EMFs, being indoors. These things are literally dehydrating us, draining our batteries. We're on technology all the time. And so it's a very off balance of not getting the right inputs to fill the battery back up. And the only ways that you can get those energy inputs are from, this goes back to like middle school, electrons. Your mitochondria, which we all know about, are like the powerhouses, the
Bottom of
energy.
the cell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they actually do so much more than that. They literally run every function in your body, every function, repair and rest, and they tell everything what to do. They're not human. They have their own DNA, they're their own organelles. They take their cues from nature. They get their information from the sun, from the magnetic fields, from, grounding, touching the earth, getting that. Those are the only ways to get electrons at all as humans are sun, water,
Drinking it or being in it or viewing it
being in it.
in the water.
You can be near it. So like if you're walking by the ocean, you would be getting you would get an electron charge from that. So it
Okay.
depends. Natural
I'm
bodies
glad
of water.
you're already answering that what I was gonna ask is because I feel like so often we go like, "You gotta be out in nature," and it's like, what's the scientific like, what does the nature do? So, okay, so it's like giving our body electrons, which communicate with the mitochondria.
That yeah, the
Okay.
mitochondria have to use the electrons to run their entire chain. So they
Okay, so
use electrons.
sunshine.
It's called the electron transport chain.
I've heard that
And
before.
yeah, like we know these things, but nobody teaches
ETC
us.
is what
Yes,
I
yes, yes,
remember, but
yes.
where the hell did I learn that?
Probably eighth grade, and then you're like, I don't need this.
I do not. I think
No.
I remember like a little squid. Oh man. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go find some memes after this. But
Yeah, it's
okay.
so incredible. And so this was just when I understood this, it makes all the sense in the world. We're mammals. We
Mhm.
can't escape that. We live modern lives, but we are mammals. That is our biology. We haven't evolved past that. Maybe in a couple hundred more years, our bodies will adapt and like realize there's some other way. But for now, this is how we operate. So you get the electrons. You would actually get it even from the shower, just water running over you. Grounding doesn't have to be super complicated, like feet on the earth, even concrete. You'll get an electrical charge, but put your feet in the grass, touch a tree, be outside as much as you can, you get the charge. It doesn't have to be for long periods of time. That's ideal, but it doesn't have to be little 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time. Go, take breaks, get some walks. But the other way is food. So food is the other way, but food is getting that input from nature, right? And so then the only food that gives you an electron charge is whole food that has been grown in nature. So, like packaged health food, not going to give you an electron charge. So, when you realize the enormity of that, which is such a foundation, and you think about how so many people live their lives, myself included, living on a lot of packaged, even healthy, packaged food, not really necessarily eating seasonal, local, like really focusing on whole foods, not getting a sun, or if I'm outside, putting sunscreen on, covering up because they terrified us about the sun. And we were like, the sun's trying to kill us, which is not true. Not true. And not really getting any of that connection on a daily basis. I'm like, how was I ever going to stay healthy? Like, of course, chronic fatigue is going to kick in at some point. Of course, our batteries, how is our body going to recharge? It can't.
What do you recommend for people? So like I live in northern Wisconsin. I am 2 hours south of Canada. And um so I was reading something talking about how like exposing your eyes to screens first thing in the morning is terrible for your hormones. And that ideally sunlight would be like the first thing your retina sees. And it has to be
Yes.
like unfiltered, right? Like you got to
Yes.
crack a
Yeah.
window or go outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the sun does not rise until like 7:30 some days. I have to get up at 6, get my kids ready for school, and there will be no grounding because it's freaking cold out. There's snow. So like what are some of your like middle of January or or winter solstice, the longest day of the year, northern Wisconsin tips for someone like me?
Yeah. And I lived in Syracuse for a long
Yeah.
time. So I
Yeah.
do relate to this.
Yeah.
So it does require in those situations, you've got to do a little bit of biohacking, is what I would
Okay.
say. So blue light blockers are your new best friends. You gotta need to invest in a pair of like really good ones that actually work. Don't try to get
Oh,
cheap ones off of Amazon because a
okay.
lot of them don't actually work.
Well, last week I ordered a couple from Temu, which is like even worse than Amazon. Do you know what
Oh,
Temu
cool.
is?
No, I don't.
It's
Sounds
China.
like you're not convinced that those are the best.
Well, now you're saying it. I thought like because they're yellow and the difference between the yellow blue light and the red blue light blockers.
Yeah.
I figured
So yeah, the
was not like
yellows.
aesthetically preference.
Yeah, so the yellow is gonna block, like, primarily blue light. So I'll wear these anytime I'm on technology, anytime I'm looking at the screen for a few reasons. One, because as you're saying, it affects your hormones. So blue light jacks our cortisol. And so this is also leading to adrenal fatigue because the cortisol is pumping, 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 because that's what blue light does. Blue light starts around like right now, this time of year, like late like early morning is when that starts. So there's different wavelength spectrums, which is what you were referring to. You have visual photoreceptors in your eyes that have nothing to do with actual vision, and they're just absorbing color and communicating that to your body, which is why it has to be like no filter, no, But what you do is that you could just wear glasses. So the red I would wear in the morning if I have to be up early and I've got to have lights on and I've got to do those
Mhm.
things. These ones are a company called Viva Ray, and they have these cool, they're really top notch and like highly rated. I know they do what they're supposed to do. These ones have different color lenses I can snap on. I
Oh,
can
okay.
just snap red right over the top of this.
Okay.
So in the morning, if I'm doing that, if I can't just roll out of bed and go view the sunrise, then like I put my glasses on while I'm functioning until sunrise happens.
Okay.
And then I don't let my naked eyes see artificial light without any filter until then the sun has come up. I've seen the first, part of morning. My eyes have the cue of how to set the circadian rhythm, the hormones. It will set your digestive clock. It sets everything for the day from that cue from the sun. It's that
Why?
important.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so red in the morning. Why red
Yeah.
in the morning?
Well, you want to block more than just the blue or you want to block more than the blue. So it's just going to be the most filter. Pre-dawn is red light. That's where infrared light is. So before the sun rises, that's the kind of light that's happening. So that's
Okay.
the most natural for your body.
And like how much okay, when the sun is like does it have to be the sun? We're really getting into the nitty-gritty here,
No,
but
no,
I am
let's do
like
it. Let's
into
do
this.
it. I love it.
So like does the sun have to be like up or like, there's like
Yeah.
pre-sunrise?
Yeah.
Like does that light count?
It does for different reasons. It's amazing to get that light. So ideally, you would get some of that light. You would see
Okay.
that pre-dawn light. That would be amazing. Sunrise isn't too far after that. You do want to see because the color spectrum keeps changing as all these change. The best thing that you could do, there's an app called Circadian, and it shows you based on where you live, what time of year it is. It shows you exactly when the different parts of the sun wavelengths are happening. So it will show you pre-dawn, sunrise. You can even set alarms to tell you like what to do. It'll tell you when UVA is rising, which is another part of like the cycle. And then when UVB starts. And that's where you build vitamin D. That's when blue light is
So
helpful because that's the time of day where it's like, oh,
you
you
know
got to
so
get stuff
much and I
done.
know so little. Okay, hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So pre can you break down like the different parts of the pre-dawn to post and like what parts is the sun giving and what is it giving for me? So okay, so pre-dawn,
So
what's that
pre-dawn
giving?
is like red light, infrared light, very healing for the cells, very anti-inflammatory,
Okay.
sets sort of the conditions for the day for the body to like know like, okay, I know what the order of events are now because this is the light information I've received. And so then you move into the next part, which is
That
you look at
seems
this.
important. Hold up. I don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
skip.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what does it tell to your body?
It
The
tells
order
your
of the
body.
day? It knows I
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
meeting at 2?
Well, it knows that like, okay, this is the early morning. So if you just think about like, imagine that we lived in nature, right? Like just this might be helpful. Imagine like we had to survive in rhythm with nature. We didn't live indoors. We weren't protected from the environment. It would understand the time of day it is and know functionally where your body needs to be to get through the day. So it's preparing. So, like those early rays also create protection, tells your cells, okay, this is the early part of the morning. We're going to do some additional healing. Kind of it's finishing up, it does a lot of cleaning at night, toxins come out, it's finishing up that cycle. Okay, day is starting. So then the next thing that I know, the body's like, okay, the next thing that should happen is that like the blue light is slowly going to start rising. And so then cortisol can slowly start rising, which is your get things done part of the day. And it knows that's
The
coming, but
blue
it
light
also,
coming from the sun?
yeah,
I thought blue light was bad.
no, it's not all bad. This is what's confusing is it's like
Yes.
not all blue light is serves a purpose. It's the part of the day where it's like, yes, okay, you're a hunter gatherer. Now you've got to have energy. You've got to get out there and hunt. and get to your food and get through this day, and you need energy, and we've got to pump cortisol. But then as the light starts to change during the day, the cortisol should start coming down. Those colors are changing. You move into a part of the evening where it goes back to more reds. And then your body knows, okay, cortisol shuts off, melatonin kicks in because now we're getting ready for sleep and rest and repair. But the other part that kind of getting that early morning light does is it also creates natural protection because it knows the strong UVB rays, the ones that we're told to be scared of. It knows that those are coming. So there's hormones, I mean, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole and like bore everybody with science, but it does release certain hormones and protective mechanisms that actually create natural sunblock for you because it knows that part of the day is coming. So what's important about that actually is that, for example, wearing sunglasses when you're outside makes you more prone to burn because your eyes aren't getting the cue that it's UVB time because those rays are getting blocked from your eyes. So it's like, well, I don't know, it's the middle of the day and the protection mechanisms go down, and then you're more likely to burn.
This is fascinating.
It's so fascinating. And it sounds really complicated. It does take a little bit to get the hang of it, but I'm telling you, like these apps are brilliant. Like Circadian app, it will show you literally the entire cycle. It will even tell you an ideal time to like eat, exercise, like just for circadian health and rhythm. But
So what
what's,
about
yeah,
what about skipping breakfast?
not a good idea.
Okay.
So I am a fan of fasting. I think intermittent fasting is really helpful for different reasons, therapeutically, for healing. Love it. You're better off skipping at the end of the day. So, part of the hormone cycle getting set for the day is cueing your body with food immediately. So, ideally, and this one's hard for me, but you're eating within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. Doesn't have to be huge, but you do want a little protein at least and some fat. So, you can do little, I kind of I make like little egg casseroles and then I just have like a little bit, maybe I'll eat a little more later, but just to get that protein initially and not skip, because that is a stressor. You've gone through an entire night of fasting, so your body like it's ready. That's a long time to go, and so just a little bit of food tells it like, oh, I know how to set the digestive clock. It's early morning. I've seen the sun. You've eaten. I know what to do now. Go do your day and be productive. And it'll set the tone for the day. It'll set the rhythm. It'll set your digestion. It'll set the whole body clock. There's kind of like a larger body clock we all talk about, but each organ system has its own body clock as well. So these things you can see like it becomes really important to give the body the right cues. And then if you'd like to skip a meal, kind of wrapping up earlier in the day, if your last meal is by like 4 o'clock, if you're going to fast, something like that, 3, 4 o'clock, and then skip your dinner occasionally. It actually, when you make that shift, I used to do it the opposite. And when I made that shift, I was like, oh my God, this feels so much better. And then I just didn't have energy crashes during the day. I didn't overeat when it came to that breaking that fast. It's like it's a more natural rhythm for your body.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you had talked about like the gut being a part of, so obviously as a chiropractor, I know like it's all one system. But like how does the gut health correlate with what we're talking about?
Great question. Primarily because the gut is a huge part of where hormones get produced. So, hormones are being produced in the adrenal glands, but there's also a lot of hormone production in the gut,
Like the stomach or like the small intestines or
in
like
the intestines, like in the
you make
inner,
hormones there?
uh-huh, melatonin in particular.
What?
The most amount of melatonin gets made in the gut. So, yeah, if your gut's dysfunctional, your hormones aren't going to be going well. That's not going to go well. And then you're putting more stress on the adrenals and they just can't keep up. The gut's part of that. The gut is our first defense, it's our immune system. And so what happens is that you've heard about leaky gut, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody at this point knows about leaky
Yeah.
gut. It's I would say this is an epidemic. I think most people have leaky gut. We are just bombarded with stressors that degrade the lining. So where leaky gut happens is in the mucosal barrier. So that inner epithelial lining of the entire digestive tract. So much happens in there. And that gets really overburdened by plain stress. But these things we're talking about, EMFs, like blue light, that's all bombarding us, pesticides, chemicals, fragrances we're breathing, toxins in food, toxins, we're just like these things are kind of like over the counter prescriptions, regular prescriptions. Like when you start thinking about all the things that are creating gut stress, you're like, okay. So the lining over time ends up getting eroded. And then what happens is your body's protective barrier, the immune system, isn't functioning right. So you have what you have in that cell, in that like inner epithelial lining, there's these tight junctions and they're supposed to open and close. So when everything's working properly, like, so things come in the gut, your body's immune system's like identifying it and it's like, okay, this is bad. Open up the junctions, let it go into the immune system. Everything else, okay, we know what this is. This can move out. Let's use it, absorb it, move it out. Over time, when there's so many stressors and everything's like, red fire alarm, like it's like
Mhm.
your gut is like running around panicking, like, open the cells, open the cells,
Right.
like everything is a danger. That also creates it wears out the system. And then those junctions are loose and open all the time. So then you've got just everything falling through. And this is where, we're seeing a rise of food allergies. And it's like weird stuff. Why is everybody allergic to carrots now? That's so strange. Like,
Is that
that
for
should be a
real?
food I can no,
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
like, I'm using it as a silly example, but it's like, but there is weird things that people are allergic to that just why? Why all of a sudden? Well, because your body thinks everything is the enemy. It's falling through that cell wall. So, as you said, so bringing this full circle, as you said, the body is all connected. There, you can't separate these systems. It's not like an isolated thing where it's happening all in one system. When things start to get off balance, other systems come in and compensate. This one's not really functioning. So now this one's a little depleted. And then it just becomes chaos, like two-way chaos. Like it's called the school that I studied with, they just call it metabolic chaos. Like their philosophy is literally the only diagnosis for anything is metabolic chaos. Because if one system is being the loudest, it's not just that system. Maybe that's just where your weak links are, where you're going to feel it. Yours may show up different than mine, but all the systems are like panicking.
So when you have someone like, and for the sake we don't have their lab work, because I'm sure that's what you're going to say next. Like, well, it depends. But
Yeah.
like, do you start with like healing the gut, or do you start with balancing the hormones through like the light? And because I mean, where do you start?
Yeah. It depends. It depends. I'm looking for opportunities. We have to address all of it. If you only address one thing, you're going to end up back in square one, and that's unfortunately a lot of what I see in my field is people who get like hyper focused dogmatically on this one thing, like heal the gut and everything will heal. And it's like,
Right.
well, but why did the gut get off in the first place? And have you addressed that? And have you really looked at it? And like, you're probably going to end up back in square one if you haven't addressed other things. However, I will say, when I'm working with clients, what I look for is the opportunities for the biggest impact quickly. So if gut distress is the main complaint, I'm going to put a lot of energy into helping somebody fix that gut because as soon as they start to feel better, they're motivated. They have energy again. They're feeling better and then I'm like, okay, now let's keep working.
What are
You know, my,
some of the most common things that you end up recommending for healing the gut?
I take everybody through an elimination diet.
No.
Yes, I know. I know. I will say this honestly. You wouldn't find one of my clients who didn't love the process. Not one. They're terrified of it. And they're like, well, they hear all these bad things. The way that I've designed it is so gentle, so slow and sustainable, tiny little steps. And they're feeling so good so fast. What ends up happening is by the end of that, they're like, I'm good. I just want to keep doing this forever. I don't want to reintroduce anything. We don't take away everything. I can if some people like it's not like a full autoimmune paleo, like an autoimmune paleo. That's intense. So no spices, no seasonings. Like that one's a bit It's maybe necessary for some people, not most people. The point of it though is to get people really in tune with their body. That's all it is it's like, are you able to connect the dots at some point that like you ate this on Monday and now on Wednesday, all of a sudden you have brain fog and you're fatigued because sometimes it takes that many days. And so it's not immediate how some food impacts us. It's like days later. And so it gives you a really good opportunity to like see the connection because some people just really don't want to believe that there's that strong of a connection between what you're eating and how you feel. Because there's just these norms, right? It's like, I'll tell you one that's a hard one for people. They're like gluten. And you know what every single client says to me? No, no, I've been tested for celiac. I don't have it. And I'm like, mm-hmm, you're still going to cut it out. And we're going to see how you feel. I'm like, if you want to feel better, this is the deal you got to see. And inevitably, it's like, oh my God, my 15 years of joint pain went away. Like, I sleep at night now. My gut's not bloated. And I'm like, mm-hmm. So that's always as we start to make nutritional changes, but it's more focused on like, it's not about removing things. It's more like shifting the mindset to what is going to feel best to nourish your body. That's what this is all about. You want to feel good. Nobody wants to feel like crap. Like if you can get real honest about the food you're eating is making you feel like crap and you have that experience, then you're going to be less likely to keep going down that road.
Right.
So we always start there. And then we do run functional labs. I do a full gut panel. And depending on what we find there, then I do use some supplements for gut healing because the gut needs some support for sure. So you have to remove the stressors and then you've got to give it what it needs and it'll heal. Leaky gut is totally fixable. It's not, there's nothing like people are like, oh no, leaky gut. And I'm like, it's fine.
Fixable. So
Fine.
then so I feel like when we talk about like balancing hormones, you mentioned melatonin, you mentioned cortisol,
Mhm.
you mentioned DHEA.
Yeah.
So do we want are those like the hormones when like, I feel like people are just like, ah, my hormones are out of whack. Like
Yeah.
which hormones?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and the thing with hormones is that so I'll put it this way, if you went to like a more conventional route and they ran like a blood serum test and they looked at your hormones and then maybe they said like, "Whoa, your testosterone's like really low." So like, yeah, that hormone's out of whack. Let's boost your testosterone. Well, what's missing from that is that one, a blood serum is actually not the best way to test hormones because what you want to know is not what's circulating in your blood. It's better to do saliva. That's more the gold standard because you want to know what's available in your body. Like what is available that your body's actually able to use. And that's going to show up in your saliva. But yeah, hormones don't work independently. There's master hormones and then it becomes a downstream thing. So it's like if testosterone is a problem, then I'm looking upstream to the master hormone pregnenolone and like what's happening with the pregnenolone and in relation to a lot of the hormones are in relation to each other. So it's not really black and white in isolation. And you would never want to look at a hormone level and say, like, oh, I'm going to fix that because it's about like, how are they balancing each other? And what patterns can we see happening and why might that be happening? You just have to keep asking why and going upstream and upstream and upstream. So, in terms of balancing hormones, again, it depends. I'm not a fan. In fact, I just had a client meeting this morning and what I showed her, so there was all the independent levels, right? Pregnenolone, DHEA, melatonin, all these ones you just like brought up. Great, these numbers. She was like, what are all these numbers? I'm like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. What I'm looking at is your pattern. And what it should be is this really nice chart. Like you see this chart, this flow of like cortisol's highest in the morning. You should see a pretty steep decline as the day goes on into afternoon. And then that should balance out. And then it starts dropping a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, but like in this really nice wave. That's the ideal. So, more what I'm interested in is how are your hormones in relation to that pattern? Like, is your cortisol low in the morning and then it's spiking, then it's going down, then it's going up? In her case, her pattern was perfect. Like the actual, if you drew the line, it was perfection, but it was below the threshold of where it should be. So, relative to Where she's at right now, her pattern of cortisol is appropriate. Cortisol to DHEA is appropriate, but it's not at the threshold that it needs to be. And right before that, she had said to me, like, I said, how are you feeling? How are things? And she's like, my exhaustion is so extreme. I just cannot, I'm just wiped. And I was like, well, wait till I show you. You're not crazy.
Her body's not
Like,
making enough cortisol.
yes. So the pattern's good. We need to raise the whole baseline.
So how do you increase cortisol? Is that when
So
it's like high intensity things, start a side
no, no,
hustle,
no,
drink coffee on
no.
an empty
Yes,
stomach?
yes, yes, yes. Start doing CrossFit at 4:30 a.m. Totally stress yourself out. Get as much jammed in your schedule as you can, and like, let's just crush your adrenals
I
more.
could help her raise her cortisol, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, my approach with her is that also at the same time, we've run a hair tissue mineral analysis, and her minerals are whacked. Like they are so out of balance. They are so some are depleted, some are too high in relation to another. Her minerals are like all over the place. That's what the mitochondria are using to fuel everything is minerals.
I thought
So,
they
so
used
my
electrons.
they do, they do. It's part of the electron
I
transport
was
chain.
getting the electrons from the
No, you got
shower.
it. You got it. There's two things. There's two things. So you've got to have minerals. That's like the fuel.
Is
The
that like
electrons.
trace minerals? Is that
Yeah. Trace minerals, the big ones you think of, potassium, sodium, calcium, like
electrolytes?
all the
Okay.
minerals.
Okay.
Yeah, the electrolytes, the trace minerals. These tests look at molybdenum. It looks at some of the smaller ones because again, they're having relationship to each other. You can't look at them independently. And so in her case, her minerals are so out of whack that I was like, where we're going to start, I could make you feel better. And I said that to her. You have an option. I can give you a temporary supplement protocol that will it will artificially boost your cortisol and you're going to feel better. I'm not going to do that for long. It's temporary. It's a band-aid fix. If you really need it, we can do it. But I think you're better off staying really in tune because what's going to happen is if your cortisol starts feeling better and you've got energy, you're going to go back into some of the patterns that pulled you here in the first place of not taking care of yourself, not calming down, not having parasympathetic. And she's like a very successful realtor. She's running around all the time. Like she's planning a wedding. Like she's got a lot going on. She'll fall back into that pattern easily if she feels better. I gave her the choice. It's up to her. And she was like, no, I don't want to do that. Let's bring it up naturally. And I said, okay, where we're going to start is your minerals because if we can get your minerals to start balancing and coming back, and she's doing all the circadian stuff. She has the good foundation. She's done the nutrition. That's on point. She's sleeping like she's never slept in 20 years. Her sleep's on point. The circadian stuff fixed that. She's got all this. She's got it down, these fundamentals. So confident she has the fundamentals in place. Now, if we focus on the minerals, my guess is within 2 to 3 weeks, she's going to start feeling better. That's usually
So are you not a fan of supplementing minerals?
Oh no, you have to supplement
Oh,
minerals.
okay.
Absolutely. I do really custom blends with people though, because you don't want to just sort of blindly supplement minerals because of what I just said. Like everybody's different. So if you just sort of like, oh, I've heard minerals are good, I'm just gonna like start taking more. I'm gonna load up on magnesium and potassium, and I'm just gonna like load my body. And if your sodium's already through the roof and your potassium is whatever, like you could be throwing things more out of whack unknowingly because they are in relation to each other. They don't work independently. So if you've got an abundance of one, you may steal from another. If you don't have enough of this one, this might steal from that. It starts to get pretty complex. So the hair tissue mineral analysis is my favorite test to run. Like if I could only run one on clients, it would be that because you can change somebody's life by changing their minerals.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where does the midday, so the person who needs that midday coffee,
Yeah.
like what are some of the best ways to address that?
Start with the morning, the sunlight.
Sunlight.
I mean, really.
Well, because that's what I was thinking when you said
Yeah.
that of like,
Yeah.
it's going to tell me what I need.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was hearing like, okay, this is going to say like, all right, you should have 9 hours of
Yeah.
energy now.
Yeah. If you bookend your day and you get the morning light right and you're not on your phone first, I'll tell you a little biohack about that too.
Okay.
Because I know some people, they're like, but I have to and dropping off kids and whatever. There's a way, and I do this in the evening. You can turn your screen red. You do this, you program this little shortcut on your iPhone. You do 3 clicks, it turns your screen red. It's not super interesting. Your phone gets real boring, but you can function. And now you don't have blue light. And so at least there's no chance. So I turn that on at night after sunset. And then I leave it off until morning until, I'm like an hour or 2 into my day. And I know like it's fine to have
You
that
can
back
check your
on.
emails if that's what you
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
do.
You
Okay.
can. If you've got to turn off an alarm, if you've got to message somebody,
Yeah.
you can do it with the phone red. You're going to be less tempted to scroll through Instagram because it's like boring. You can't see any colors. You're like, meh, which is a good thing. So if you get your morning right and then you protect your light in the evening, your energy during the day is going to shift. That's the best place to start. You're not going to have that crash during the day. The other thing is having that morning protein and fat. If you start the day with protein and fat and you leave more of the carby stuff till later, even if it's good, like fruits and whatever, like don't do that first thing in the morning. It's not like sometimes I'll throw a handful of wild blueberries into it, like a
Oh, she's a
protein
wild woman,
smoothie.
people.
I am. I get crazy. Sometimes there's wild blueberries. Look out. Yeah. Protein, fat, and the prioritizing, and this is another thing I see for women. We so undereat protein, massively undereat protein. That's your fuel source. Protein, good fats. That's going to keep you energized. You're not going to have that crash. But if you start your day, let's say, there's 2 bad things. One is just starting it with like empty stomach, black cup of coffee, good to go. You've just set yourself up for the crash. It's going to happen. I promise it's going to happen. The other thing is like, or if you're the person who's like muffins and oatmeal and whatever, all the sweets in the morning, totally by the end of the day, midday, you're going to be like, oh my God, I need coffee. I cannot. You've set up just blood sugar spikes. So protein, fat, getting your lighting environment right, those are fundamental, and your whole life will change by just those things.
This has to be affecting men too.
Totally.
Like
Of course it is. Yeah.
So like I feel like women are allowed to say like, I'm tired. This doesn't feel right. But like men have got to be like, we've seen like testosterone levels are supposedly tanking. So that's got to be related to all this too, right?
It's the exact same. There's no difference. Maybe some of the, like we talked about, like there may be a little bit of a difference of what the stressors are. There's of course commonalities, but everybody's experiencing whatever their stressors are, and it's impacting the body the same way. For sure. Absolutely. And I work with men too, and like the approach is the same. The approach is always the same. You start at this fundamental level, you start working on all the systems, because the thing is, this is what's different about the approach. You trust that the body knows how to heal. When you give it the conditions, you remove the main stressors, you give it some good inputs. It's like always trying to go back to balance. So you don't even have to get that complicated with the hormone. That's what I mean, like supplementing and the hormones, because the body will be like, oh, I got this. I know what to do. I got this. And it's going to balance itself in most cases.
So you said that you have an infrared sauna.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're like in process of buying one. So what brand do you have?
Ooh, I have Sunlighten.
Okay. I'm between Sunlighten and Clearlight because like I asked the chiropractic people on Instagram and those were the 2 that came through.
Yeah.
Like, but I heard Clearlight has like less EMFs and I was like, I don't even know what EMFs is and why I should care about it. So, so that's not really a good selling point for me. We didn't talk about EMFs. Can we talk about EMFs? Because I apparently don't know what the fuck they are.
Yeah. So, okay, EMFs in general are not a bad thing. It's electromagnetic frequency and it's natural. Like there are EMFs that are natural. Our body understands them. They're in nature. The earth is putting out electromagnetic frequency. The sun is, like we are exposed to EMFs. What people are talking about when they say EMFs that are bad are called non-native EMFs. So these are man-made electromagnetic frequencies. And so if you think about a radio show, right? Like we know that those are running on certain frequencies. We see these frequencies are all around us. We don't see them. We don't know they're there. But then you take your radio, you tune it to that frequency, and all of a sudden the music starts playing because it's like in the air, right? So All of our devices now are creating electromagnetic frequency, and we are bombarded with these artificial man-made frequencies that aren't ones that our bodies understand. They are in ranges that are very high, very intense, that aren't at the natural levels of what our biology understands as helpful to our body. So the problem with EMFs is that, or non-native EMFs, is that, everybody kind of talks about like isolated things like, oh, come on, this iPhone, like, how bad can it be? Although I don't know if you saw on the news, like France just banned one of the iPhones for like high levels of radiation. But when they test these things, what they do is they look like, the way that they tell you it's safe is they do these experiments that basically like put it close to, like, they like make a fake human head with like water, and they're putting it close to the head, and they're looking at how like much it heats the water or radiates it. And if it's like considered a safe level, they're like, no, it's fine. It's not really radiating you that much. And it's like, okay, sure, maybe. But also, the non-native EMFs are doing a lot more, which is confusing our body because there's so many of them and our body doesn't understand what they are or what to do with them. So it's sort of just think about it as like scrambling things. And there's so a plethora of people who do the science, but they can show you like red blood cells, for example, and they'll show you somebody's red blood cells flowing freely, doing what they're supposed to, bouncing around, bouncing off each other, free flow. They have somebody put a cell phone to their head for 5 minutes, do a call, and then they look at their red blood cells and immediately they're clumped together. They're sticky. They aren't flowing. Yeah, it's like, it's not, you can't argue it. More of the problem though is that if it was just your one's phone, fine. Your body can
Mhm.
handle it. It's resilient. Of course it can. But it's literally you multiplied by every person on this planet who has these devices, and then every device. So there's smart meters on the house. Our fridges are smart, our stoves are smart,
Mhm.
our cars are smart, iPads. You multiply that by everybody in the household, then everybody in your city, then everybody in the world. And it's like we're being nuked, like with these
Well, what do you do
waves.
then?
I don't know. We all have to go live in Panama or something. I'm not sure. You have to do the best you can. And so this is where I got to when I really learned this. I buried my head in the sand with non-native EMFs for a long time. I'll be honest. I was like, come on. What are we going to do? I can't live in a bubble. Like, this is ridiculous. How
Right.
bad can this be? And then I was like, oh, it's that bad. Okay, okay, okay. But also, I'm not going to live in fear, and life is life. And I'm going to focus on two things. One, making my body as strong and resilient as I can in all the ways that I can control,
Yep.
because I cannot control all of this.
No.
The fear is going to cause more dysfunction than anything, because then you're telling your body there's a
Mhm.
problem. So that's not a good place to go, because people get real crazy. Like, people get pretty crazy about this. They take it to extremes. And I'm like, that's not my choice. That's fine. That's just not my choice. So, fortifying yourself, making the best decisions you can with everything that's in your control so that your body can handle it, and then doing what is in your control. And there's simple things to do, like, for example, like not your proximity to these devices matters. So, like, not carrying your cell phone in your pocket. If you can have it away from you in a bag or something, or turn it on airplane mode if you need it with you, but you don't really need to be using it. Little things add up, like the little bits of the day where you can get some kind of break. The simplest thing possible for your entire family is you go to like Lowe's or a hardware store and you buy this little remote. It literally has like two buttons, on and off, $5. It's for anything. So you could use it for like lights, if you just want like a remote to turn anything that needs to turn on and off. This is how I do my hyperbaric chamber by myself. I zip myself in, I've got a little remote, it turns on the compressor, and like I'm good to go by myself. But you plug your Wi-Fi router into that, and then at night, you keep the remote by your bed, you turn it off. End of story. Then you've given your body, at least in your household and your family, 8, 9 hours where it's got some reprieve. You don't need it on at night. Why do you need it on at night? You don't. So, like, you do these little things. You just start to live a little more mindfully. Like, do I need to be on this device that much? And you just start to look at your patterns. And it's like, when you need to, you need to. I work on a computer all the time. I see my clients virtually. I can't escape that. But then, when I don't have to, I don't spend a ton of time. I try to just, and there's certainly products that have popped up. There's all kinds of like You can put cases around your cell phone. You can put cases around your Wi-Fi. You can put cases around your smart meter on your house. You can do things. There's whole businesses now. This is what they do. They go into people's homes. They measure all the EMFs and radiation, and they give you advice for modifications. Like most of them would prefer that we just hardwire our house and we don't have EMF or we don't have Wi-Fi. I live in a condo. I can't do it. Like
Yeah.
maybe someday, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I had asked about infrared and then I got
Yeah, yeah.
sidetracked. Sidetracked.
You were like, infrared sauna. Why do I care about EMFs?
Yeah.
I think with either, just FYI, I think
Right.
either brand, you're good. It's very low. Sunlighten is very low EMF. So
So
whatever.
what is the like, because that's red light.
Yeah. Infrared. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how have you have that and the hyperbaric chamber? Like what
Yeah.
are those doing
Yeah.
for your health?
Yeah. I also have a cold plunge and a red light, different red light machine. The infrared sauna I bought initially because I had discovered years ago that I had a lot of mold in my body
Mm-hmm.
from being exposed to water damaged buildings for a really long time. And that was creating some of the issues I was having with the autoimmune stuff in my gut.
Infrared can
The
help that?
well, the
The
sweat.
sauna? Okay.
Yeah. And so infrared, what's so impactful about infrared is it goes deep. So I'm sure as you were like looking at these, there's like near infrared, far
Yeah.
infrared, like they
Yeah.
all do different things. They all go to different levels of the body, but it goes deep. So it doesn't artificially heat the body from the outside in like a traditional sauna does. It literally goes into the cells. It vibrates the cells and it gets the cells to generate heat and light.
Which is
Like
kind of creepy if I think
it
about that a
is
little
kind of
too much, but
creepy.
okay, I
It's
won't.
creepy, but it's cool. It's what our bodies are supposed to do. You generate brighter light in your body than the sun. Like we don't even know this. Our bodies are like mind blowing. So you're getting at those cells and you're programming them to get healthier and stronger. And then it creates heat and sweat from the inside out. So you're going deep into tissues where things are stored and you're starting to like push things out from a deep place.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there's all kinds of benefits they found,
Oh, yeah.
cardiovascular benefits, blah,
tons.
blah, blah. We could have a whole episode about infrared sauna,
Mhm.
but I did it to
I'm sure once I
sweat.
get one, I will. Don't worry.
Yeah. I can't wait. You should. You're going to be
It will
obsessed.
be sponsored by who? Who will it be sponsored by? Sunlight? We will
It's
know.
up in the air. We don't know. We don't know. Yeah. And so I got it because I just needed to sweat regularly to help move the toxins out. So that was the initial,
That's another thing. Our society doesn't freaking like do any detoxifying.
no. And these are these natural detox pathways. People don't understand your lymph, your sweat glands. Like there's all these pathways to get toxins out, and you've got to keep those moving. Like, and if you can, if you're sweating, you're exercising, that's fine. Infrared does a little bit of a deeper job. It's going deep into tissues. And so it's really repairing at a cellular level. The hyperbaric oxygen chamber just gives your body a lot of oxygen boost, which again just helps the cells to repair. That was also a mold thing. It's just also nice. Like I'm so relaxed in there. So I zip in, I get a book, and I'm just like chilling in my hyperbaric. It's like it's good for wound healing. It's good for like so many things. But like mine was about like mold detox initially. It's why I bought it. Cold plunging is like my new obsession.
So my husband's also. Yeah, I have somebody coming on the podcast to talk about cold plunging at some point because I'm just like, all right, so what's the brand that you have? Or did you make your own or
No, I bought one. The brand I have is called Contrast.
okay.
And
I'm sure my phone will start getting ads for it now. So thanks.
yes, it has
That's
hurt us
good.
now and it's going to start popping up. Yeah, it's just a good one. It's solid. It doesn't have as many bells and whistles as the other ones, but it does have the filter. I wanted like water filtration, the UV filter. It's portable if needed. So it's like military grade. Like when you blow it up, you could stand on the edges like a solid tub. But I didn't want like a solid porcelain cold plunge that I like
No, that's the thing
wasn't
is
going to
some of
be able
these
to move. Right.
yes.
Yeah. So Contrast is the one that I went
Okay.
with and it's great. But yeah, I went, I actually went on a Wim Hof excursion in June to Spain. So, Wim Hof, the Iceman, like he's the one
Yes.
that has
Okay.
popularized this.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm in my brain.
Yes.
I'm like, that sounds familiar. And then as soon as you said, it, I was like, oh, it's because my husband won't shut up about him. Not shut up. My husband's not a chiropractor. He's a business guy. And yet he's, I swear, more. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Tell him he has to go on an expedition. It's life-changing. Life-changing. Yeah. So I've always done the breath work. I've done Wim Hof breath. I love it. I've taken cold showers for years, but it was time to like go deep and like just get in the ice and see what happens. And yeah, and that's just, I mean, I would say the most profound thing for me was actually more of a spiritual, personal evolution
Mhm.
of like going deep and quiet in a way that even through meditation, I haven't been able to get that quiet and calm and real with myself.
Mhm.
And it revealed some stuff, like it was like, oh, there's some hidden things you've been ignoring.
Mhm.
Interesting. So between that and the breath work at this expedition, I was like, okay, I'm never going to be the same.
Oh,
I'm not the same person. I can't
I
do
love
it.
this.
But the ice reduces inflammation. It can
Yeah.
help with hormonal balance, like people who are weight loss resistance, it will help that. And you're going to love this. So back to your question about what do you do in Wisconsin? Because part of the thing is like sun creates melanin, the like pigment on our
Mhm.
skin, which your body's using melanin to heal. So it'll pull the melanin from your skin to repair things. But it's like, so if you don't live in climates where you can like constantly be replenishing your melanin, how are you going to do that? Cold, cold thermogenesis will create melanin in the body. So like if you live in a cold climate, do it, cold plunge. It will create this healing mechanism and this hormone in your body that is like profoundly healing. Your husband's gonna love this. He's
I
gonna be
know, I
like,
know.
"Hush, so this is why I'm
Yeah.
obsessed."
I know, every morning he's like, "You gonna cold plunge?" And I'm like, "Oh, I would. I just can't." So,
Next time,
yeah.
let's take a rain check. I'll be in the sauna.
Right, exactly. Tiffany, thank you so much. Okay, final question. Where can people get more of you, work with you? Like, or do you taking clients? Do you have courses? What's happening here?
Yeah, so I work with people one-on-one primarily. Um, My website is my first and last name, tiffanycagwin.com. That's the best way to like connect with me in every way. So from there, you could book a consultation with me. You have access to my calendar right there. So people can just book that discovery call. I meet with people and we just talk about what's going on. What are your goals? What are the outcomes you want? And I'm really honest about whether I think I'm the right fit because I want people to have success. And so we just kind of have a conversation and we see how we both feel about it before we move forward. And that's, complimentary call. I don't charge people for those. And then on there, yeah, I've got some good freebies, some good guides. And currently on there is a yoga retreat that I'm leading to Costa Rica in April. So there's a link to that. There's a few spots left. I'm going to take people, talk about like a place where you learn fully how to connect to the circadian health. It's like I'm taking people to this magical place in Costa Rica called the Osa Peninsula, which is a blue zone. And this place just grows all their own food. And like you watch the sunrise and you're just in sync with nature. And you come back feeling, even if you're not a yogi, like I've had so many non yogis go on these, and it's one of those like trips where you actually feel better after vacation versus like,
Mhm.
no, I need a vacation from
Yeah,
my vacation.
yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then, of course, you can connect with all my socials from my website. And yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so, so much. This was definitely more educational than TikTok wormholes that I've gone down and more clarifying. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like gift you a guide that is gonna explain more of this, all your questions about the different wavelengths and the circadian stuff. Like I'm gonna send this to you afterwards and you
Awesome.
can put it on your fridge and it's gonna make all the sense. It's gonna
Okay.
eliminate all your confusion. It's not that
Thank you.
complicated. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right, She Slayers, go tiffanycagwin.com,
Yes.
CAGWIN.com,
Yep.
and check those out. Get the freebies, go to Costa Rica, get some. Well, what was the brand of glasses?
Viva Rays.
Viva or Vivo?
Yeah. Viva. VIVA. Rays. Be
Well, I'll
brave.
just throw away the one I bought from Temu. They were $2.97.
Totally, those are not going to work. I'm sorry. I just have to tell you, there's no question. Those don't work.
I was pretty confident. As soon
Those
as you
don't
said
work.
it mattered, I was like, oh, the ones I bought don't. Like, I just thought, like, they're yellow.
No.
They'll work, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Use those for Halloween or something. Those will be a good, just put them in the costume drawer. Mhm.
Sounds good. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
You're
All
welcome.
right, cheese slayers. Until next week. Bye.